Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss book 27 in R.L. Stine's Goosebumps original series. A Night in Terror Tower came out January 95. January 95, book 27. So this is a used book from a kid, well, an adult at this point, and they got this from Kmart. It says, please scan inside front cover. Publisher list price $3.99. Your price $2.99. Kmart does not exist anymore. So rest in peace, Kmart in the US. Now, 129 pages, very quick, very entertaining. I would have not named it A Night in Terror Tower because it doesn't take place during one night. It takes place during a day and change. So I would have called it A Time in Terror Tower. Why I would have done that is for two reasons. One, to play on the actual plot of the book, because it's not a night, it's over a day's worth of stuff. And two, keep it with the T's. And Time in Terror Tower. A Time in Terror Tower. It's a tongue twister, but it makes sense. A Time in Terror Tower. Would have never called it A Night in Terror Tower. Also, this executioner is just a guy as an actor, like roaming around as the tours are happening in this castle, aka Terror Tower. And like the actual executioner is not this character description. So a little wonky. I like this character description better, this actor guy, but he's not the actual executioner. So A Time in Terror Tower, my remake of it, my re-releasing of it. So main characters are Eddie and Sue, brother and sister. They're in London. Parents are at a meeting. They're doing, the touristy tour stuff. They're with the tour group. They're the only kids with the tour group. It's a bunch of old people and then them. So their tour guide takes them to Terror Tower and does the history. It was built for this reason. It was then turned into a prison for poor people. If you couldn't pay, your taxes, you were just thrown in jail. That was it. You're done. Then it was used for executionary purposes in general. And then there's this lore that this, the main prison cell up in the top of the tower where the Prince Edward and Princess Susanna were executed by their uncle, the Mad King, things, right? So then as the story progresses, Eddie and Sue wind up getting lost in the tower, and then because they're being chased by this guy in a black cape, very pale, has these 3 stones randomly, just he's tossing them around. And he kept saying, you're going to remember me. You're going to remember me. So then eventually they escape through the sewer, which is interesting. The night guard helps them call a taxi. The taxi brings them back to the hotel called the Barclay. But by the time they get there, the coins that Sue has is not coins. It's not British pounds. It's not pences. It's nothing. So the taxi driver's getting mad. And he's like, this is play money. Go tell your parents. So they go up to their room, 626, right? Stitch's number, 626, room 626. And they can't find their parents, and the maid lets them in because they obviously don't have a key, and there's nothing there, no suitcases, no clothes, nothing. They go down to the concierge. They don't remember the last name. They don't remember their parents' name. They don't remember what they look like. Nothing. Creepy. So then they go eat in the restaurant, as per the front desk guy's suggestion. The taxi driver then chases them in there. They then see the black caped guy again run through a back door, but then it takes them into a different part of the hotel, but then it's all old-timey. It's got candles and stuff, and they're like, well, what happened? Obviously, this is weird. Then they escape into the street, and it's not the street that they were just on. It's old-timey. It's hundreds of years ago. There's ox-drawn carts and things, right? So then the black caped guy with the white stones is, keeps chasing them, and then eventually it's revealed that he's the actual executioner. And they're actually not Sue and Edward and Eddie, that they're actually the prince and princess that were executed back in the day. But why are they in modern times? Why are they in the 90s? When they should be back hundreds of years ago. So then eventually they get captured, they get thrown back into the tower, and then Morrig is the sorcerer of the king, who actually practices magic and explains that when he stacks the stones in a certain way on his palm, says the 3 magic words, and then gives a time of how far, he wants to send somebody, then that's how they go. So the two of them time traveled to modern time, aka 1995, to avoid their execution, and then were transported back because the executioner stole the sorcerer's stones, went to the future, literally, and so then took them back to the past to then be executed, as the canon event, aka now we're using Spider-Verse terms, was supposed to happen. So then there's the showdown, which isn't really a showdown, it's more like a screaming match. And then Eddie winds up stealing the stones back from the executioner, who then gave them to Morag, who then Eddie then stole them from again. And then Eddie winds up saying the 3 magic words. Doesn't say a time, though. And then all of them, as in Sue, Eddie, and Morag, the sorcerer, all wind up back into the present of the 90s that we first met the characters. So plot flaw at the very, very end, because it was specifically mentioned that you had to say the 3 words and the time, and Eddie didn't do that. But they all wound up over there anyway. So who knows? Plot flaw, whatever. But this is a time-traveling book. This is not a night. It doesn't take place during a night. That's why I'm saying if you called it a time in Terror Tower, that makes more sense, because you're evading the execution and you go to the future to then visit the execution site inadvertently, to then go back to the past, all over the place, right? So what I like about this is that we know that magic is real because in the Goosebumps canon, because of monster blood, we know that Sarah the cat is actually a witch and used her magic to curse the monster blood. We know that. That's a canon event. We know that in Night of the Living Dummy, there's certain words that are said to then bring the dummies to life in regards to a certain spell, a certain trance magic. Now we have a third magic aspect within Time and Terror Tower. I'm sticking by Time and Terror Tower. Within time travel. So we can bring toys to life, we can bring dummies to life, and now we can time travel. So what happens next within the magic canon? There's a lot of different canon stuff. There's a lot of the ghost canon that we've talked about. The monster blood sequel that we talked about as well within the magic aspect. So I like that there's certain things that stay within the canon, and I'm very curious to see what happens next within the canon. I like that. I like that we have terms that we can use now and we all just understand, and it's wonderful. It's fantastic. Those of us who follow fandoms understand that it's wonderful. It's fantastic. So, book 27, R.L. Stine's Goosebumps original 62-book series. We're getting there. It's taken a long time. We're going to be finished before Halloween, but we're getting there. A Night in Terror Tower, a.k.a. what it should have been called all along, A Time in Terror Tower. Just flows off the tongue. A Time in Terror Tower. It's like a rap, right? A Time in Terror Tower. Love it. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.